in. Okay. All right, so I am going to introduce my friend, Mark Mongeau. Okay, so Mark is an engineer, you guys. He's not one of the, he's very left brain, very logical. Love that he's here. Love that he's presenting for us. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about everything that he knows about prosperity and abundance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just read a little something that I wrote about Mark so that you know who he is and what he's about. Okay, so Mark is an author. He is a professor and he is a keynote speaker. He's also retired. How many years were you?
I was practicing for 46 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and wait, what kind of engineering?
I was a civil engineer, specialty in underground. It's called geotechnical engineering.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I get that from a lot of people.
Geotechnical engineer. That's
yeah. Dirt, actually.
Awesome. Okay. Anyway, you are retired now. You are living in Scottsdale, Arizona. I happen to know this about you.
That's right. You know exactly where I'm living.
You live with your beautiful wife, who happens to be my mother.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gave it away. And your sweet, darling dog, Bear, who is just the most amazing little dog I've ever known.
Mm-hmm. He's our boy.
All right. So without further ado, let's hear what Sir Mark has to say about dogs.
Hi. As Jamie says, my name's Mark. Okay. My name's Mark, and I am in Scottsdale for my home here. Glad to be here. Want to mention that please comment whenever you want to. Let us know you're here so that we'll know you're on and that you're talking to us. I'll be happy to get interrupted at any time. Jamie's going to monitor the comments, questions, scathing remarks, or whatever else you want to say. And whatever you say, I'll deal with it at that point. I'm a strong believer that when men plan, God laughs. So I'm planning to say certain things, but if it goes in a different direction, I'm willing to accept the fact that that's where it's supposed to be right now. So interrupt me at any time, and time is just a relative term, doesn't mean a darn thing. So please feel free to do that. I have been for most of my career a practicing engineer. I got into the presentation business as part of my job, and it just kind of expanded to a lot of other things. I enjoy doing it very much. And that's why I'm here today. I'm going to, but I'm an old guy. I'm an old man and graduated back in the last century from college. So technology is not one of my strong suits. So sharing the screen. Uh-oh, what happened? Well, there we go, Jamie. Choose what to share.
Got it?
Yeah, but the problem is it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So I got to cancel, share screen. Nope, I knew it. It's not letting me share system audio, entire screen window, Microsoft. No, see, I knew that by going on. Yeah, it doesn't allow me to go to my files. I knew there was going to be a problem with Facebook. Darn it. And yeah.
It may have been an issue on my end with making sure that you had.
Yeah, I just went to post attendee now, so I'm going to have to go back to my web, launch the meeting again, because it already put me into post.
We'll work through the glitches.
Yeah.
It'll work. I have faith.
Yeah, it says it's connecting, but not so much. Okay, join with video. Soul Heart, supposed to let me in the room. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, don't care. Thank you, though. Enjoy. Whoa.
Oh, and there's this.
I assume you can hear me now.
I can hear you.
No, I'm muted.
All right.
Okay.
So when you have two devices going at one time,
What?
you need one of them to be muted.
Okay, but I'm getting feedback from you, sweetheart. It's the problem. Okay, well, then that's not it. Okay, how's this? Nope.
Mark, do you have earphones maybe that you can put in? Ah, there you go. There's sharing screen.
Yeah,
I bet
but
you
not
don't
my.
even need to be.
Yeah, the screen's fine. The sound is not working. Well, I lost this.
That's okay. That's okay. Give me a minute.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there and letting us work through the technical difficulties.
Okay, Jamie, it's on your end, because when I mute, I still hear it.
Okay. It's on my end as far, are you saying the feedback?
Yes.
Let's see, Wendy says when he's sharing his screen, will we not see him? You can see him. For some reason it is not showing your third connection. More.
Yes.
Lots of feedback. Mark, I tell you what, why don't you log out of both, log back in, and we'll see if you can share. I'll come back on screen. I'll come back on screen and you log yourself completely out and log back on just with your computer, and we'll see if that will make a difference. Because I have a feeling he was in my waiting room, you guys, before I logged on to Zoom. So I have a feeling that has something to do with it. We'll see if it has something to do with it or if not, but maybe that has something to do with it. Thank you very much for, thank you very much for sticking with us while we work through the first sharing of screens and whatnot through Zoom. I've done it before. I know it can be done. I've seen other people do it before. It is not an issue. The problem is that I think that it worked before. I have faith it will work again. I'm gonna look up at the comments to see if you guys are saying anything to me and or making any kind of suggestions, because I know that you guys are probably even more tech savvy than I. So hopefully we can, you know what, I'm gonna stop the whole thing and we'll start over. Maybe, because he's not rejoining. He's having trouble rejoining. Gonna check one more thing before I log off, just in case. All right, so let's see. Yeah, the background noise was because he had two devices. I know that because it's happened to me before. And, you know, as you can see, I have my phone over here, my computer over here, and one of them has to be muted and the other one, and it's not just the mute on the computer, it's the mute on Facebook or the mute on the telephone. So it has to be both. Or it has to be muted. One device has to be completely muted, right? So you can mute your sound and you can mute the thing or the software that is working. So here we're going to admit him now. We're going to see if now that I'm the first one in the Zoom room, now I suspect that you'll be able to do your thing. I'm going to make sure that I have proper permissions in place before you screen share, but I suspect that screen sharing should be for all participants. It's all good. It looks like it's set correctly. So
Okay.
give it a try, Mark.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can't hear me. Can you hear me? Well, I'll share the screen. Zoom speech.
Yay! This is wonderful. All right, I'm going to take myself off so that Mark can do his fabulous presentation.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you just fine.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sorry, everyone, for the confusion.
So glad you're here.
To the extent that that was my mess up, I apologize. To the extent that it wasn't, I still apologize. Okay, so let's get started. Everything I know about living a prosperous life, I learned from my dogs. Okay, let me get, Jamie mentioned I'm kind of left-brained and I'm somewhat logical. I'm an engineer, I'm a scientist. So I'm not going to go into a huge discussion about the sentience of animals and whether their emotions are real or whether they just care about eating and everything else that animals do. Because for this particular presentation and really in my heart, I love my dogs and I think they love me. And I'm going to believe that they are, in fact, endowed with human characteristics that we can learn from. If you got a problem with that, I apologize. But that's I'm going to believe that my dogs, both of them, are sentient. So
real quick, Mark.
Okay,
Right now, what we can see is where we can see your screen, but we cannot see the presentation.
Well, I've got it up here.
You have it up. So
yeah.
Perhaps come down here and share, and you have to choose which screen you want to share. Right now, what we can see is your file folder that has, this PC, documents, and then speech.
Okay, so I'll stop the share.
There you go. Try again. And choose the PowerPoint. There you go. That's perfect.
All right. Okay. So is that good?
Yes, that's absolutely great. Thank you.
All right. So let me talk about why I think dogs are special. If you've ever owned a dog, you don't have to listen to me because you know very well why dogs are special. But I had the opportunity to come here, buddy. I had the opportunity to view a presentation or a documentary called Dogs Decoded. It's part of the Nova series on PBS. And typically the Nova series on PBS is highly political and addresses all kinds of political issues. And I don't generally like to watch that because it just makes me upset. But this particular one was just about dogs and how special they are. And scientific research which shows how special they are and that they were one of the first domesticated animals for humans. And they have indeed a special bond with humans that no other animal shares. It's a great series and it's a great special. If you can find it somewhere, I think they may still have it on Amazon. Dogs Decoded at Nova. It'll tell you why dogs are so special. And they need us and we need them. That's one of the great things about dogs is they're pack animals and we are part of their pack. And so that's why I think we have a special bond with them. No offense to you, Jamie, but I don't think cats have that same mentality when it comes to humans.
But that's just me. I know you love your cats, and that's quite all right with me. So let me introduce you to my dogs, okay? Actually, there's 2 dogs as part of this presentation, but there's only 1 dog currently with us. Maggie was my favorite dog. No, sorry for Bear, but Maggie was my favorite dog. She left us April a year ago during the pandemic. She got very sick and was put down, and it was a very sad moment for a lot of us, and me especially. But I've always got her in my heart. She's the one on the left. She's a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier. She was a blue blood. She had all the papers registered. In fact, her real name, I believe, is Mr. Marvin's Miss Margaret. And we just called her Maggie. Now, she was my wife's dog before I met my wife and before we started dating. And she took Maggie up to Baltimore with her when she took a job up there. And Maggie didn't like apartment life very much, and it was creating problems. So she shipped Maggie down to a house I was renting in Orlando, and she then became my dog. We had a bond immediately between us. She loved me and I loved her. She is the best dog, was the best dog on the planet. She had a couple of picadillos. If you've ever had a Wheaten, they're subject to what's called the Wheaten greeting. Whenever somebody shows up at the door, they will go running as fast as they can, not be able to stop, and jump all over whoever comes in, which is a little bit disturbing to workmen. So she's got that problem, and she had a problem with food addiction. We'll get to that in a little bit. So that's 1 dog, Maggie. The second one was Bear. And Bear's still with us, and here's living proof. There's our Bear. Say hi, buddy. Yeah, he's our buddy. He was a rescue Pomeranian. He's a good dog. He's 6 pounds. He was found wandering in a town, suburb of Orlando, north of Orlando, with his leash still on, in terrible shape, completely, totally abused. Was taken in by a rescue group. Police found him. And the vet thought he might have been a puppy mill stud dog because he's got the perfect coloring for Poms. They like that tricolor. It's the show color. And so he was used in that regard. But when we got him, he was terrible. You might notice that Bear doesn't have the characteristic pointy ears of a Pomeranian. That's because his ears have been so badly infected and beat down. He has boxer's cauliflower ears. It's the cartilage is all torn up and misshapen. So he doesn't have the classic Pomeranian ears. He had all kinds of ringworm and heartworm, and he was a total mess. But he is the most non-Pomeranian Pom in the business. If you've ever owned a Pom, they probably barked until you went crazy. Bear doesn't bark. He will, if he's stuck on a bed and he can't jump off, give 1 little yelp just to tell us that he can't get down, and we'll come and put him down. But I put him on the floor, sorry. But he doesn't, he just doesn't act like a Pom. So those are my 2 dogs. And I'm going to use those dogs and some of the characteristics they have to hopefully, as a jumping off point for what I've learned in my time, is to what makes a life a prosperous life, a life worth living. But I think before we get too far into that, I had a problem understanding what we meant by prosperity. And I did the silly thing. I looked it up in the dictionary, and it says prosperity, the condition of being prosperous. That's kind of circular logic. Don't think much of it. So I decided to go to some of my favorite philosophers, writers, people who are smarter than me, and see what they thought of prosperity. Well, Confucius said, when prosperity comes, do not use all of it. When prosperity comes, do not use all of it. Seems to be that there's a limitation on prosperity. Euripides, from the Greek side, much effort, much prosperity, suggesting prosperity has to do with one's own effort. And Horace, adversity reveals genius, prosperity conceals it. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounded really, really smart. So then I thought, well, let's go to some more contemporary philosophers, maybe some on the humorous side. And Mark Twain said, few of us can stand prosperity. Another man's, I mean. For prosperity is a surest breeder of insolence, I know. Now, that one's a little bit cynical, but depending on your definition of prosperity, absolutely correct. And then, of course, W.C. Fields, if there's a will, prosperity can't be far behind. I assume he means last will and testament. Calvin Coolidge, who is not anybody's favorite president, but I like him a lot. He said, prosperity cannot be divorced from humanity. That means a lot to me. And he also said, prosperity is only an instrument to be used, not a deity to be worshiped. Now, that means an awful lot to me. Earl Nightingale, writer, and C.S. Lewis, Earl said, any person who contributes to prosperity must prosper in turn. C.S. Lewis says, real joy seems to me almost as unlike security and prosperity as it is unlike agony. So Lewis seems to think that prosperity is detriment of joy. To have real joy and prosperity seem to be incongruous to him. And of course, then there's my mom and dad. They told me cheaters never prosper. I get that one. But I was looking through Inc. magazine, of all things, and I found an article by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He was reviewing a book called Prosper, written by Willis and Garn. And this is the definition of prosperity he came up with. And it's almost identical to the one I developed when I was preparing this presentation. I want to read it, and please take a close look at it. Being prosperous means you have a life worth living. It means your internal and external worlds are congruent. It means you have deep and loving relationships. It means you're making the world a better place and helping others to prosper as well. Several elements here. It has to do with a life that has purpose. It means that the way we live in the external world reflects the values that we have internally, that we don't do it alone, and it's our obligation to make the world better by helping others. That's, to me, the true meaning of prosperity. So now that I've adopted that as our meaning, let's see how we go from here. What does a prosperous life mean? Well, this is what it means to me. A mind that learns one's purpose and acts on it. I think purpose, our purpose in life, what Wayne Dyer continually calls your dharma. Our purpose in life is at the key to establishing our prosperity in life. By the way, I have to say, I really enjoyed Natasha and Monique's presentation. I've always been told to never follow children or animals on a schedule. And I'm going to add now, never follow Natasha on a schedule, because she covered pretty much everything I think is important. But maybe when you hear it from my dogs, it'll just have a little different spark to it. So thank you, Natasha, for setting up the truth and the honesty about a prosperous life. The first thing is it's free from what we know as the ego world, the world that serves ourselves, the world that doesn't allow us to be ultimately prosperous as defined by Dr. Benjamin. It's connected to the divine, connected to something greater than us. I agree with her. It doesn't matter what your terminology is, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's connected to the divine, to something we know is higher than us. It's obligated to make the world better in every aspect of one's life. I heard someone say once, and I have tried to pattern my life after this. I have feet of clay and have failed on lots of ways, but I've always felt that if you can make a situation that you're in better because you have been there, you're on your way to prosperity. And then we have to understand that we are a human and spiritual entities. And Natasha mentioned that we're actually spiritual entities living a human existence. I've also heard that, or are we humans living a spiritual existence? To me, those aren't contrary, they mean the same thing. So, but we won't get into that discussion. I haven't developed all this by myself. I've had lots of spiritual guides. Some of them she mentioned. I've listened to and read a number of Wayne Dyer's books, and the one that had most influence on me was his thesis on the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Marianne Williamson's description and explanation of the Course of Miracles to the world. Greg Braden's concept of the gift of blessing. One of my favorite authors, Chuck Swindoll, he's a Christian author. He wrote a book, Strengthening Your Grip, that I have learned an immense amount from. Don Miguel Ruiz's Four Agreements was almost, I guess if there's any book I've read that has affected or changed my life more, it's been that one. And of course, my own journey. As I mentioned, I have feet of clay. I have made more mistakes than I care to mention, and certainly won't mention them. And I want you to excuse me as I go through this presentation, if you will, for probably using more Christian terminology. But that's just me, and that's just because I was raised a certain way. As Marianne Williamson said, the Course of Miracles is almost entirely based on a Christian terminology. But the thoughts, the truths, the concepts are universal. And I think Natasha mentioned that. She touched on that. So excuse me, please, if my terminology is decidedly or primarily Christian. It has nothing to do with my understanding that any other terminology is deficient, because it's not. So let's get right to the most important and most misunderstood aspect of prosperous life, and that is money. Here's Bear acting like a Hollywood star, like he has a lot of money. But the fact of the matter is, Maggie was the one that was really the money dog. She was a purebred registered dog, and you know how restaurants, when you look at a review in the online, they have a number of dollar signs by how much that bill is going to cost you. Well, Maggie was a $4 sign dog. Bear, on the other hand, was a rescued and, as I mentioned, abused puppy, and he was at best a $1 sign dog. But I can't tell you that either one of them holds a superior place in the hearts and minds of the people who know them, especially our family, Chris and myself. We love them both equally. We are sad to see Maggie go. We think Bear is one of the best dogs we've ever had. And so the fact that one of them was born rich and the other one was born poor has absolutely no emphasis on the way we feel about either of them. We live in a culture, however, unfortunately, where the pursuit of wealth is everywhere we look. It's in the culture. It's in the social media. It's on the television. It's everywhere we look. The pursuit of wealth. Rich means good. Poor means bad. The simple fact of the matter is, money is neither good nor evil. It's absolutely neutral. Its only purpose, it has only one purpose, and it allows a civilized society to barter goods back and forth in a very efficient and simple way. We decide something has value, and then we can use that we can use money to then purchase or trade or sell whatever that item or service is, because money is understood as having the same value. But it has no spiritual good, in my mind, or spiritual evil. Now, there's nothing particularly noble or beautiful about poverty. There's nothing particularly right about poverty. Marianne Williamson said, a breadline is not beautiful. It's ugly. It's people that can't eat. They don't have enough food, that are suffering. And there's nothing particularly ugly about wealth. I read a couple of quotes by Joe Louis a long time ago. Joe Louis was, the great fighter in the 30s and 40s who defeated Max Schmeling, the German Aryan great boxer. And he was very famous, and he made a lot of money, and he lost it all. And so he was poor. He was in great debt and ended up working for Caesar's Palace as a greeter. He said a few things about money. Whoops, sorry. He said, money isn't everything, but it calms my nerves, and it tends to put my creditors in a better frame of mind. So Joe had a specific perception about money. Chuck Swindoll, in his book, Strengthening Your Grip, which I would recommend it to anybody. Again, it has decidedly Christian terminology. But Chuck writes how to strengthen your grip on all kinds of life issues And one of the most important is strengthening your grip on money. And he says that there are basically three types of people when it comes to wealth in the world. The first are people who have little or no money. He references the Apostle Paul when he talks about this. Apostle Paul said, I have been poor and I have been rich, and I have learned to be joyful, whatever my status. I paraphrase, of course. But he says, if we have no money, and I think Natasha talked about this with the one-bedroom apartment, be grateful for the blessings that we have. Gratitude for what we have is extremely important. And if we don't have as much as somebody else, that doesn't matter. We're grateful for what we do have. The second class are those that have some and are actively pursuing more. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. He says that's okay. There's nothing wrong with pursuing wealth, pursuing money. He says, but be careful. It's like a winding road through the mountains of Arizona. It's beware of falling rocks, and beware of sharp corners, and beware of slippery roads during the monsoon, because the path of pursuing wealth is fraught with danger. And then he says there are those of us who have lots of money, who have been blessed with tremendous wealth. And he says that's okay too. Just understand your blessing and understand the obligation that comes with having tremendous wealth. And let's go back to Dr. Benjamin's concept of the prosperous life. Use that wealth to elevate the world. Use that wealth to help others prosper. Chuck would tell you, as would a lot of others who I've read, acquiring wealth cannot be our goal. Our goal has to be doing what my Christian terminology calls God's will, but you can call it your dharma, your purpose in life, whatever you want to call it. You have to be happy and joyful with those parts of your life. And those things can lead to wealth. They certainly can. And they may. And in a lot of cases will. But they don't have to. Joy doesn't come ever from the money. Joy comes from the other things we're going to talk about today. And the money just might be part of it. And we have to understand then, when we're blessed, blessing others is part of our responsibility. It's all about our thoughts. How do we think about things? How do we think about money? Do we have positive thoughts? Do we have ego-based thoughts? Do we have spirit-based thoughts? Our spiritual-based thoughts will allow us to use our money, to use our wealth, to use the resources that we are blessed with to elevate those who don't, elevate the world. Natasha also talked a little bit about energy. So I'm going to talk about energy. My two dogs have two definitely different energy personalities. Maggie was a ball of thunder, outgoing and active. Like I said, she'd run to greet everybody. She loved to run. You'd say, run, Maggie, run. And she'd just tear as fast as she could in a big circle and come back to you. She had boundless energy when she was healthy. She could jump, she could run. She loved to go on walks. She was just always energy. Bear, on the other hand, I call him digital dog. I remember old deputy dog. He was digital dog. He's got two speeds. One speed is living life at the end of the leash. When he and I go out for a walk, I walk a steady pace. He will stop and sniff and water a plant or do something he wants to do real bad. He'll just dig into it. But when he feels the end of the leash, he'll stop and run past me up to the next spot he wants to sniff at the end of the leash. And I'll just keep walking, and he'll go end of the leash, end back, end forward, end back, end forward, running all the time. But then when he's not doing that, he's essentially comatose. He will find a place to snuggle up to somebody and knock out right there. That's my dog Bear. Lots of energy. They both are very different, and they both bring a great deal of energy to their lives. That's an example for what we should look at. Positive energy is one of the most important aspects of one's life, and especially one's work life. I want to kind of get into one's work life here. You know, I in my job last 40 some years, I was 30 years with my last company. I just retired in April. One of the responsibilities I had, and I picked up a lot of responsibilities. I was sort of the Mickey Stanley of the company. If you don't remember, Mickey Stanley played for the Detroit Tigers. He played all 8 positions in the field. So that's what I did. Whatever somebody didn't want to do, I got. So I was a recruiting manager for a while, and I get to read 100 resumes a week. I mean, it's just terrible. I get resume. And it amazed me how people put so much effort into their resumes. And when a resume never gets anybody hired, I never hired anybody because of a resume. I hired people because when I got to talk to them, I could see if they had the energy, if they had an abundant heart that allowed them to have energy when they came to work. Did they show up? I don't mean walking in the door. You know what I mean by show up. Show up with everything ready to go and ready to put into it what is necessary, to do the very best they can at all times. That is Ruiz's 4th agreement, to always do your best. Now, a little side parenthetically here, Ruiz says your best may not always be good enough by someone else's standard. That's true. Your best may not be good enough. Doesn't matter. The responsibility of an individual is simply do our best. And if that's not good enough, that's beyond something, is what they say, over your pay grade. Do your very best at all times. And that's what I wanted to see with people that I hired, is were they going to do their very best? Were they going to be honest? And and I keep harping on this one issue. We use our energy to make the world better, make others better. You know, they say the best basketball players are not those who can score the most points or can get the most rebounds or the most assists, like Russell Westbrook, if you're a basketball fan, is playing with the Lakers now. You look for someone who can actually make everybody else on the court play better. So LeBron James, for example, Michael Jordan, they always made the people around them play better. And so that's what we need to do with our energy. We need to make others better. We need to make the world better. And it doesn't matter what we're doing, we find our purpose. Whether you're a CEO or you're a janitor, not that janitors are a negative position, we all love them. There's no difference. Everybody has to come to the table with their energy. If I had someone say it to me once, they said it 100 times. I need to make more money. And if you just pay me more money, I know I can work harder. The few times that I gave into that in my career, the same thing happened. For 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. The person was a ball of fire. Then they leveled right back into their own level of energy that wasn't acceptable and certainly didn't warrant the additional compensation. I'm of the belief that if you are a fantastic hamburger flipper, you will make a fantastic senior manager. And if you are a lazy hamburger flipper for $7.95 an hour, not today, but in the day, if somebody gave you $100 an hour, you would have no more energy and you would be no better employee. It's all about yourself, your internal energy. This next one is about Bear. As I said, we found Bear at a rescue. Now, Maggie, we had for a while, she was a free feeder. You'd put a bowl of kibble out, and if Maggie was hungry, she would go eat. She never got overweight. She never got over 30 pounds. She got down to about 25 or 26 pounds when she was ill, but she had a very steady weight throughout her entire life because she understood what free feeding was all about. When I'm hungry, it's going to be there. I'll go get it. Case closed. Bear, on the other hand, came from a situation where there were probably a lot of dogs, and the feeding was at a specific time. And getting yours and keeping yours was important. So there was a limited food supply. And he understood, and he says, if I'm going to get it, I got to go get it and hide it and eat it. And when we first got him, he didn't understand free feeding. He would go get his food and he would put as many nuggets in his mouth he could fit, walk into a corner where he could be safe and eat it there. guard it and make sure he got his. Eventually, he realized he could have what he wanted. There was no limited food supply. It was unlimited. And his life got a lot better. Natasha talked about the human ego life. It's certainly not a prosperous life. The human ego life believes that resources are finite. There's only a certain amount out there, and I got to get mine. Life is a zero-sum game. For me to win, somebody has to lose. For me to win, somebody has to lose. And if I'm losing, somebody's winning. And I'm going to resent that. In other words, our ego life is based on fear. Afraid we're not going to get our share or our piece or more than we deserve. It's a terrible way to live. Our spirit-filled life, and as Natasha mentioned, connected to source, whatever we want to define that source as, understands that resources are essentially infinite. There's enough for everyone. Buckminster Fuller, world-changing architect from the last century, introduced to me by my college roommate, who was an architect, actually, Stuart Kendick, told me all about Bucky Fuller. But Buckminster Fuller was also a commentator on life and on the world situation. And he says that the resources in the world, the resources that the planet has, at least back in 1978 when he said it, was enough so that every human being in the world could live a life of luxury, of relative luxury. The problem wasn't that the resources weren't there. The problem was that the world is driven by ego, and ego does not allow those resources to be adequately created, developed, and distributed. As Natasha said, you have to think that these resources are available, because these thoughts have, your thoughts, my thoughts, have impacts. They have effects. They're just not ephemeral parts of the ether. They are meaningful, and they have impacts and results. A prosperous life, a life with meaning, understands that anything is possible. There are no limited resources. Everything is possible. All right, let's talk about Maggie now. Unfortunately, accountability. Dogs are not perfect. Maggie's a Wheaten Terrier. The people who first knew her when she was young called her the Wheaten Terrorist. She was a handful. If you put your lunch on a side table that she could reach and you turned your head for about, I don't know, 2 seconds, she'd have half that lunch down. She personally, I remember for sure, 2 birthday cakes that she launched at and put her nose in before they were cut. I remember one Christmas, we were at our house in Orlando, and we had dinner in the dining room, and we're going to share and open presents, exchange gifts in the adjoining living room right there. So everybody turned their chairs around to get around the tree and watch the little children open their gifts, and turned around and realized that Maggie had jumped up on a dining room table and was cleaning the plates that had not yet been cleared. That's Maggie. And this is the look she kind of gave you. This picture shows, I'm not really sorry. Why don't you ask that dude with the red hair, meaning bear. Not having accountability is another part of our ego-driven life. Blaming others is an ego life characteristic. If you listen to Wayne Dyer too much, or many at all, he'll tell you about his young life experience. His dad left the family, and him and his siblings, I think he had 2 siblings, and his mom were by themselves. She could not take care of them. So they were put in foster care, separated and put in foster care for 5 or 6 years, I think. And he is very bitter for that situation. And he never had contact with his dad. And he found out his dad passed away. and he was going to go to his grave and spit on his grave because he had so much resentment for his father. And he had an epiphany at that grave that, my life was my life, and I'm going to be accountable for whatever I did and for whatever I experienced. And I'm not going to use my dad as an excuse for anything that might happen to me. I learned through some therapy that some things my mom, characteristics she had, and things she had done to hurt me psychologically. But I also learned in therapy that that's something I need to forgive her for, because she did the best she could. Just like I hope I did the best I could. And Dr. Dyer forgave his dad for the terrible things that he did. He accepted responsibility and accountability. So a prosperous life requires us to be accountable to ourselves, to others, and to our higher power. And one of the ways we do that, and I think Natasha touched on this, is to replace unlovely negative thoughts with lovely ones. Remember what we said, thoughts have impacts, thoughts have results. And if we're thinking unlovely, resentful, unaccountable thoughts, then that's the way we're going to be. And so we need to do as best we can to replace those thoughts. We have to atone. The 8th step of a 12-step program is to make amends to those that you harmed. And if we are not being accountable, if we are blaming, then we need to atone to our higher power and to others who we might have harmed, who we might have hurt. Because atonement, true acceptance of one's behavior and atoning for that behavior in some way leads to forgiveness. And forgiveness is foundational in a prosperous life. It doesn't do any good to look backwards and find out how badly you've been hurt. If you've ever been in a cruise ship or a boat, if you look behind the boat, there's a wake. But that wake does not propel the boat. That's where the boat was. It's not there anymore. The wake has no value to the boat at this point. The engine is propelling the boat, not the wake. And so it's important that we look at the wake, maybe, remember it, atone for it, be accountable for it, but we cannot live in it. You can't live in the wake. The boat's only going to move forward if we live where the propulsion is, live in the moment. Dr. Benjamin talked about loving and caring relationships. That's part of a prosperous life. I think this picture is one of the best pictures I have ever seen in my entire life. This picture was taken the day we brought Bear home from the rescue fair that we found him at. And he's sitting, I think he's sitting on a lap. It might be my wife, I'm not sure. I think that's her mother in the background with the blue blouse on. And Bear is just brand new in the house, sitting on the master's pack leader's lap. And Maggie's got that look that you cannot, it's a look that tells 1,000-word story. Who is this dog? And what is he doing on my lap? Love that. Maggie meet Bear. That was a relationship that did not start off positively. As part of a prosperous life, we have to understand that we don't learn just by ourselves. We learn from others. And my dad taught me something. He said, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. He used to say that. He was a kind of a cynical guy sometimes. He was very poor. He didn't like the boss. And he says, you're only going to get ahead in life if you know people that can help you. If you know, the rich folks, if you know the boss or, whatever. Well, I think he's partly right. We have to know what we know is really important. You can't get by in life if excuse my language, if you're stupid. You can't be stupid. You've got to learn. You got to read. You got to understand. You've got to know how to do things. But we all need others. We've all had mentors. We've all had co-workers. We've all had clients. We've all had friends, family, others who we have counted on and built these loving and caring relationships with. Caring and loving relationships are critical to anybody's life, especially a life of meaning or a life that's prosperous. Nurturing those positive and loving relationships is crucial to our personal prosperity. I believe this more than anything. Everybody has some very good friends. We have very good friends. We lost a family member, and very good friend just this last summer. And the level to which we are saddened by that describes the level of the relationship that we had with him. We need to build those relationships. I do, you do, everybody does. Homage to Aretha Franklin, I guess, right? R-E-S-P-E-C-T. There's Bear. He looks like the top dog. He walks like the top dog. And who was the top dog in our house once Bear came in? Well, that's what respect's all about. You respect anybody, not necessarily just the top dog. Fortunately, neither of our dogs were the pack leader in the house, so they had to both take their spot to who was the real pack leader. But sometimes we think that education, status, and wealth are important. And people that have those things become very arrogant about life. That's what Mark Twain was talking about. You know, he says that prosperity breeds insolence. And that indeed is true. People who are wealthy, I won't call them prosperous because that doesn't meet our definition of prosperous specifically, but people who are just wealthy or go to the right schools or have the right status can get very, very arrogant. And when you're arrogant, you tend to lose respect for things. So why would you respect other people? I mean, what are the reasons? Why would you do that? Number one is because the world's definition of success, the ego definition of success, does not equate to one's personal value. Someone is not more valuable because they have a big fancy car. Someone is not less valuable because they don't have a big fancy car. Like, remember what we said, money is absolutely neutral. It has nothing to do with one's personal value. You also respect others because, in the cynical reason, you never know. You never know where that other is going to be someday and what they're going to have to do with helping you. I remember I used to tell my young proteges, engineers that work for me, that you treat everybody with respect for these reasons here. But for the second reason, because I remember that, you know, somebody today who's riding the back of an end loader or a bulldozer can be tomorrow's construction company owner and a client that you value. We had an engineer working for us that not everybody liked, and he left us and everybody was happy, or so a lot of people were happy. I always liked the kid. He had a nice family, he had a tragedy in his family, and so I think that had a lot to do with his problems. But he moved on, and then he became the county engineer for a county in which we worked, and we counted on him for business. You never know where people are going to be, and so you respect them. That's the cynical reason. The real reason, it's just the right thing to do. Everybody's got a place, everybody's got a path. They all deserve respect. We need to value and respect everybody and their own personal paths, even if we don't think their personal paths are very effective, even if we think they're making mistakes, especially our children, especially our children. I remember my daughter, Rachel, when she was in college, and she started as a physical therapist or athletic trainer program, but her real love was music. She's a beautiful singer, and her real love was music. And she came out to me one day before choir. We sang in the same choir at church. And she said, "Dad, I don't want you to get mad at me, but I want to change my major to music." And I said, "Do you want to be a musician? Do you love music?" "Yes." "Well, okay, then you should change your major to music." And I reminded her that one of the things I always told her and all my kids was, do what you love what you do, deliver more than you promise, and make a difference in other people's lives. If you do any of those things, all those things, I don't care what your profession is. It doesn't matter. That's what's important. And I reminded her of that. She's a teacher now, a fabulous teacher. And so I have a lot of respect. Had respect for her then, have more respect now. Respect and trust. Okay. My dogs have absolute trust in my judgment. And if you don't believe that, take a look at Maggie here one Christmas where we put a Minnie Mouse helmet on her because we thought it looked cute. And she didn't budge for a moment. She said, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, I'll play the fool and pose for the pictures. She has trust in us. Whenever we take her out for a walk, she doesn't care where we're going. Wherever we go, she goes. Trust is foundational to a prosperous life. First, trust in source. Trust that our higher power, that the thing that's more than us, knows everything about us and knows what's good for us. And in order to trust people, we have to be worthy of trust ourselves. We have to be trustworthy people. And that comes, and a big part of that is trying to extricate ourselves from the human ego that promotes winning at all costs. Remember, the human ego believes in a zero-sum game. For me to win, somebody's got to lose. That's not very trustworthy. It doesn't breed trust. In fact, it breeds the opposite, mistrust, because you're going to try to get yours, and some of yours is probably going to come from me. And we have to trust the power of our thoughts. Our thoughts do have power. Our thoughts have meaning, and our thoughts have results. And it's helpful to know that that really does happen. That's the confidence in our knowing that we have a purpose, finding that purpose, and knowing that we can satisfy that purpose for a life of meaning. I think Natasha talked a little bit about relaxing today. Boy, dogs know how to relax. I will tell you. I told you that Bear knew how to relax. He's a digital dog. When he's not end of the leash, he's zoning out. He knows how to relax. And Maggie had a lot of energy, but she sure knew when she wanted to just jump up on the sofa. And our dogs always slept with us in bed. We had Maggie, we had Bear. Bear crawls up right between the two of our pillows every night. They know how to sleep. They know how to relax. But we have a culture, and especially in the business I was in a consulting business. And consulting is, it's you only make money if you are consulting, and you have to be right. If you're wrong, you tend not to get the next job. So we understood the culture of anti-relaxation. My first boss told me, he said, Mark, the way to be successful is to come to work every morning before your boss and make sure you leave in the evening after he does. In his mind, he'll think you're always here. And I remember Dave told me that. And for the 3 years I worked for Dave, I did exactly that. I showed up early, which wasn't hard because he didn't get in until 9. But I would always leave after he did. I'm never sure that made any difference in my life. And then there was the mandatory award apology, something I was subject to myself. Whenever you go to an awards banquet, I love that. You go to an awards banquet, and when I was coming into the business, engineering was 95%, 90% male. Okay, mostly men. Now there's lots and lots of women. I teach at the university. I had lots of women in my classes. It's a great thing. Loved it. But in those days, it was men. So whenever somebody would win an award, Engineer of the Year, Outstanding Service to the Profession, Technical Achievement Award, whatever it is, they would get up and make the same exact speech. And most of all, I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with the late hours and the out of town trips and the neglect of my family completely. That was my own negative interpretation of the speech. Always an apology for paying attention to the work and not paying attention to other things that were just as important. I gave that speech once, same speech. Deadlines are important. Schedules are important. Due dates are important. These are all things that we need to do to be competent in what we do. The energy we have should be dealing with these things. But we can't let these things control our lives to the point where we neglect the balance. And I think Natasha talked all about balance. To neglect the balance in our lives. The work life can mean maybe we're neglecting our physical life or our spiritual life or our emotional life, as she said. All 4 walls, all 4 pillars, absolutely valuable, absolutely important. We have to make sure that we can relax as part of that. The Bible says even God rested on the 7th day. I got to wonder about that. If you read the first chapter of Genesis, it's all about God creating universe. God created the heavens and the earth, and it was good. And he created the land and it was good, and he created the animals and it was good. Everything he did was good for 6 days. Now, if the maximum ultimate power energy of the universe can bring things into existence from nothing, do you think they get tired doing it? I don't think so. It wasn't rest on the seventh day because he got tired. It's because the Bible and every other spiritual text tells us there is a time for everything. And there's a time for contemplation. And there's a time for relaxing. There's a time for a regimen of quiet meditation. Natasha told us all about that and how to do that. Connecting to source. It's the most important thing in our lives is our connection to our God, to our source. We have to have time to relax and do that. It's to take time to pursue healthy and relaxing interests, things that cause us to grow in different directions. Like she said, read a book, read this, do that. You know, I'll share this with you. Since I retired, actually before I retired, I decided that I wanted to pursue another degree, another master's degree, because I've always been a student and passionate about history. So I'm attending online classes at Arizona State University here for a master's degree in history and religion from the Department of History and Religion. And I'm 6 out of 10 courses into it. So I'm more than halfway there. I'm not sure it'll ever mean anything to me financially or what, but I just wanted to do that. I love it. I'm passionate about the subject. And so I consider that a healthy and relaxing interest that's going to help me learn and broaden my outlook. And broadening your outlook is very, very important. You know, my son-in-law is a fabulous pilot, Gene. And I respect Gene for so many things, but specifically in this case, you know, Gene flies a very sophisticated jet at elevations higher than commercial airlines. And so he is very in tune to the technology of a sophisticated jet plane. So I'm sure he's very well aware of all the instruments that will tell him everything about what's going on with his airplane. He's the captain, he's in charge at any moment. But yet, when Gene goes on a trip, if you go onto his Facebook page, he will always have beautiful pictures of clouds and landforms and things he sees by lifting his eyes out of the cockpit, broadening his outlook, taking his eyes off the instruments for a short period of time to see the beauty of everything around him. The instruments are important, but it is much more conducive of a prosperous life if we take the time to broaden our outlook to some of the beauty that we can't see in the instruments. Which brings me to the last and clearly most important aspect of a prosperous life, of any life, is love. Maggie specifically used to do this. At least Chris told me she did this, and I believe her. I used to get home from work at about the same time every day, 5:30, somewhere around there. And she said that somewhere, you know, about 5 or so, Maggie would walk up to the front door and lay down on the mat that was in the hallway, waiting for me to come home. Because when I came home, Maggie would greet me. She would lift her head to me, put her arms up so I would grab them and hug her. And then she would fall in behind me as I walked in to the family room to say hello to Chris. Now, as I said, maybe it's a stretch to think that dogs, animals, have the same kind of emotions and can love somebody or love something in a way that humans do. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to believe it because it makes me feel better. And I think her kind of love, animal kind of love, I think is mostly unconditional, so long as you keep feeding them, of course. I think you have to do that. The Beatles said, love is all you need. You know, whatever you can do, you will do. Whatever you can make will be made. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. Chris and I were just talking today. Actually, one of our favorite songs is John Denver's song, Poems, Prayers, and Promises. And he says in that you know, he's taking stock of his life, and it's been good. His life's been good. And the things he thinks are important in his life is that, you know, we talk about the things we believe in. He believes in things, important things. How nice it is to love, and how right it is to care. How nice it is to love, and how right it is to care. I'm sorry, but I always get a little choked up with that song because it's sad to think that there are people because he talks about getting older and how he thinks it turns him on to get older, to grow old with the people he loves. Sadly, John Denver died at an early age. He didn't get a chance to live that life. I'm at that point in my life. I'm older. I'm pushing, my wife and I are late 60s. And I'm saddened by those who live their lives till the end of their lives, never having loved for real, never having cared about anything of substance. And how fortunate I am to have all those things, to have people to love, my wife, my family, people like Jamie, her brother, Greg, my children, Rachel, Sarah, my dogs, and things I care about, people I care about. And I'm 68. John Denver died at 53. Doing something he loved, by the way. So anyway, I digress a little, but it is the most important part of a life is love. You know, we have a problem in English. English is probably the strangest language on the planet, especially when it comes to love. You know, I ate at Rehab Hamburger Therapy today. Great hamburgers. My favorite, peanut butter, grape jelly, and sriracha hamburger. And it's the best. And I said, I love this hamburger. And then in another breath, I will tell my wife that I love her. And clearly, the word is inadequate for both meanings. The Greeks had a bunch of words. Eros was the word for romantic love, sensuous love. Philia, the love of friends. Philadelphia was named after that, city of brotherly love. Koinonia, which was a communal type fellowship, a love of common purpose, communal. And the top is agape, unconditional love, the kind of love, the perfect love that our God, that our power has for everything, for us, for the world, for the universe. As Natasha said, for the earth, for the animals, for the country, for the world. Love, that unconditional love that God is. Love defines the divine. It's the most important part of the divine. And the divinity in us, as Wayne Dyer says, we are God. And as Natasha says, we're made of the same thing, the same power, the same energy in the universe as us. And love conquers fear. You know, fear is the opposite of love. Not hate, fear. Hate comes from fear. People hate because they fear and they don't know how to deal with it. Love and fear cannot coexist. They certainly cannot coexist in a prosperous life. One of the metaphors I remember using when I was talking to children, doing children's lessons in my last church, is that I would talk about a surgeon's glove. You know, when a surgeon operates, they put on a glove, and that glove is so malleable and so tight that it mirrors the skin of the surgeon, because even a little bit of air in between the glove and the skin might cause them to not move their instruments in exactly the way they need to successfully complete the surgery. And so air cannot exist inside that glove on the healing hands. Fear cannot coexist where there is love. Love isn't just something we feel, it's just something that is a part of us. Wayne Dyer used the analogy of an orange juice of an orange. Asked the little boy, what's inside an orange? And he said, well, orange juice. Why? Because that's what an orange is. An orange is full of orange juice. An orange can't be full of anything else. It's orange juice. It can't have apple juice. As humans, as people, as children of the universe, love must be inside us for us to be complete, just like juice must be inside the orange. It's the necessary core of a prosperous life. Chris and I talk about this sometime. Greg Braden's gift of blessing, and Natasha was talking just about this. Returning evil, returning negativity with love. That's his gift. We give a gift of blessing. Somebody cuts us off. We don't yell at them and throw the finger and scream. We say a blessing to you, because we don't know why they cut us off. Maybe they're running somewhere they have to go to help somebody. Maybe they're just thinking about some terrible tragedy, and they just lost consciousness for a second and did the wrong thing. But that doesn't matter. We're not condoning what they did. We're simply saying a blessing on you today, that you might be better, that you might feel better. He said in his book that all oppression has three participants: the oppressed, the oppressor, and everybody else that knows about it and does nothing. He says we have a responsibility to love the oppressors and the oppressed actively. We don't have to condone the oppression. In fact, we cannot condone the oppression, but we must love and bless everybody. Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, I think, love those who hate you, bless those who persecute you. If one should hit you on the cheek, turn him the other. If one should take your coat, give him also your cloak. Love. It's the most important thing in the world. So what? We all want to live truly prosperous lives. I think we do. I'm sure everybody on this call does. I do. We seek to live such lives by connecting with our source. And Natasha talked about it. It's the most important thing, connecting with source. We pray for the wisdom and energy to find and follow our purpose, to live our life with the purpose that we believe we're designed for. We need to continuously engage these keys we talked about to a prosperous and meaningful life, what Dr. Benjamin talked about, to live a life worth living, to have positive, loving, caring relationships, to make sure that the way we make our money, the way we get successful is congruent with our values, with the positive values that we have. And that when we are successful, we lift up the world, we lift up others, we help others prosper. Those are the keys. There are no class schedules. There's no notes you need to take. There's no lectures you need to attend. There's no outlines that'll teach everything how to do it. The only prerequisites are to look beyond our human ego and just maybe pay attention to what a dog might be telling you. This is in memory of Maggie, our dog. Best dog in the world. Jamie, I'm done.
Aw, you were absolutely amazing. You had hundreds and hundreds of hearts and likes and loves and all kinds of good stuff on Facebook, and everybody was commenting and making sure that you can unshare your screen so that we can see you.
Okay, stop share. Right, sorry.
But that was fantastic. Let me just read a few of these comments so that you can see, or so that you can hear some of the things. My comment was, I've never seen a dog more focused on what he wants to obtain than Maggie. She is a good example of staying focused on the prize, eyes on the prize. Because the second you turn your back. Yeah, Robert said not to look down on others, that he respects the janitor as much, if not more, than the CEO.
Right.
Yeah, the word love. Talk to me a little bit about the word love. Robert's comment is love is misused by many.
Oh, sure. And one of the reasons it's so misused is because our language is so limiting when it comes to the word love. And as we said, we're a culture. We're a culture of. It's not. We have a unique culture. We have a diverse culture. We have a historical culture, but it's a complicated culture because we've got so many different cultures that meld together because of the immigration from the early 19th century all the way till now, is that the languages and the cultures and the understandings of relationships are so different across the diversity. So we try to find a truly American culture. And when we try to do that, we run afoul of ignoring diversity. And so the word love then becomes a casualty, because then we let the popular media and the popular culture define the word to us, and children get younger and younger and younger using a word that is essentially one, at least in the eros term, what the Greeks would call eros, is an adult term. Okay. Agape is a term that everybody needs to use. Unconditional love, from the dog up to the CEO, from the child to their parents, for each other, so we can understand agape. But when you're saying that, wow, I really love Justin Timberlake, he's hot, and then say, I love you, mommy, is not the same thing by any stretch of the imagination. So how can we now tell somebody? You've got to then contextualize every time you use the word love.
Right.
What's the context that I'm using it in? Again, most languages, classic languages, Roman, Greek, they don't have that problem because they have a word to define each one and they understand it. Not so much Americans, because we have we're a bastardized language that stole from just about everybody and made it up as we went, So
we're still making it up.
We're making it up, yeah. And so love, yeah, he's right. Love is complex. The concept of love is pretty complex, but in some respects, the context of love that we're talking about here today, the love, the universal love, the love that we have because we're God, is simple. It's all reaching, it's all encompassing, it leaves nobody and nothing out, and everybody is capable.
I have to read this to you, and
okay. That's
hilarious. Stuart says, excellent presentation, but the hamburger sounds awful.
Oh, Stuart, listen.
Did you get so wise?
Stuart, believe me, when I was sitting at the restaurant, the very first time I went there, and the waiter told me, I said, what's your best hamburger? He said, the best hamburger we have is peanut butter, grape jelly, bacon, failed to mention the bacon, cheese, and sriracha. Now, today I had it on a pretzel bun, which was even better. It is the best hamburger, bar none. You would never think those elements would blend. Absolutely perfect. And I will tell you, what Stuart's his name? Stuart, I don't know where you live, but if you find your way to Scottsdale someday, I will treat you to a peanut butter jelly and sriracha and bacon and sriracha hamburger at Hamburger Therapy. You will.
What restaurant is that? We can give them a plug, for crying out loud.
It's Rehab Hamburger Therapy.
Rehab.
Therapy.
Okay.
Rehab Hamburger.
Rehab Hamburger Therapy is a restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona.
On 2nd Street in Scottsdale. Scottsdale Road and 2nd Street in Old Town.
We're going to all come visit you and have this hamburger just to prove you either right or wrong, depending on which camp we're in.
Well, you'll have to see. But Stuart, trust me, Best hamburger going.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Kids going around saying love without any feelings behind it. Yeah, you know, we all do that. We all do
Sure.
that. It's you know, you gave the perfect example as far as I'm concerned is, you know, I love this hamburger and I love my wife, like not even comparable.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is that when you know, I didn't get this till I was much older, but there's nothing more important to any person than to understand the importance of loving everything and everybody. And there, you know, and I mean,
feeling loved.
I heard it in Sunday school, you know, love those that don't love you, love those that hate you, but nobody ever took it seriously. I mean, you certainly can't love Adolf Hitler. You know, you certainly cannot love these people. And I think that's not right. That's not right. You can't not love anybody or anything. And because of our ego, that's a big load to pull up the hill. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guess what? Thank you so much, Mark. That was a truly wonderful presentation. I love hearing you speak. You're so passionate.
Okay,
and
well,
it comes across.
Well, thank you. By the way, speaking of which, I actually have a presentation that I probably made more than any presentation I've ever made and more requested than any other. It's called Putting Passion into Your Presentations. How to make a passionate presentation.
Love it.
And I will tell you just a teaser. The very first rule, Mark's very first rule of public speaking, and it is the one if you violate, you will never have a good public speech. And that is, nobody in the audience is as interested in what you have to say as you are.
As you are. That's probably true. I don't know. Tune in tomorrow at 4 p.m. to learn about toes. Because I'm crazy about toes. And I know not everybody is.
Well, that's.
All right.
Be there.
Speaking. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's. I'll be there. I've got
Speaking
9 of those.
Tomorrow, I just want to take this opportunity to announce tomorrow's speakers. So from 8 to 10, we have Kellie Haehnel presenting Creating a Peaceful Prosperity Mindset. 10 to 12. And by the way, this is California time, just in case you didn't catch that. We have Tisha Marie Pelletier. I think she pronounces it with the T, but it's a French word as far as I'm concerned.
Pelletier.
Personal brand prosperity. She's going to teach us a little bit more about branding ourselves or our businesses. From 2 to 4, we have Wendy Lynn on how Enneagram brings prosperity to our relationships. And if you don't know what Enneagram is, you must tune in. It's really cool, you guys. And then 4 to 6 is me, myself, and I talking about toes and how you can see your prosperity in your toes. You have to be there for that one because it's just too weird. And why not learn something you don't know about?
That's right.
And then a couple of quick announcements that I want to make on just so that you know. Anybody who's tuned in tonight, if you've made a comment, we will be able to see it on the recording. And thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate that very much. There may be a bonus in there for you just for being here. Also, if you will complete the homework assignment, there's a homework page posted in the group as an image under, as a JPEG under, I think there's an album, and the album is homework. Homework something, maybe homework materials, I think is what it's called. Anyway, that homework album has the homework and will have each day's homework. The homework will be up for as long as the videos are up. So this video and the video before will be up until midnight tomorrow. So Natasha's video on Balance to Prosper and Mark's on everything I know about prosperity I learned from my dogs. So sweet. Love that. Love it. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. If you are enjoying the content here in this group, please share the group. Please invite your friends to be here with us. We look forward to sharing more amazing information and fabulous content with you tomorrow and Sunday from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. It's a long day, I know that, but we'll take some breaks, we'll take some breathers, we'll move and stretch. We'll try to hit all 4 of those balanced ways of showing up, like Natasha taught us in the first video. And if you didn't catch it, you must watch the replay. And we'll try to implement some of the amazing lessons that Mark taught us today about what we can learn from our puppy dogs and kitty cats. I know he doesn't think that kitty cats have much to share with us, but I believe they do. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning at, I'll be on at about 7:45 setting up. So thank you for sticking with us during the technical difficulties. You guys are awesome and love that you're here. Bye for now. If you have any questions, let me know. Jamie Allen Bishop, Soul Heart Collaboration. Bye for now.